Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, go on for now, and I'm going to go on my computer. Here. No, here's my headset. There you go.
So grabbed as many as I could from his Facebook page, and I know a lot of probably everybody on here is Facebook friends with Barry. And anybody can unmute yourself. I just muted everybody for the video, but please, if you want to say something, please unmute yourself.
So yeah, thanks for coming. I'm Steve Geller. Barry and I go back to the 1980s, business friends, and over the years we became personal friends and family friends. We celebrated a lot of occasions together with my wife Elaine and I and our sons, and a lot of association functions. We traveled together, drove down in Baltimore to the Crab Fest, trips out west by plane. We became friends. We became good friends. And we used to meet at my house and for dinners and lunches with us, Darrell Wambrin, Cliff Rom with us, Dana Malley, Stan Moskowitz even joined. And everyone everyone has been fond of Barry. Everyone in my family, my brother Larry and Nancy and his wife Nancy became friends. Um, so this was just our way. Darrell and I kind of thought this together when we went to see Barry at our last visit up to his home. Said, let's do a memorial this way. And Monica from the AACFB, one of the preeminent associations in our industry, agreed to do this, and I thank her for it. I want to wish my condolences again to the Reitman family. He was a wonderful brother, cousin, uncle, and that's it. I think we're going to hear a lot of stories about Barry today, and it's going to spark a lot of remembrances. I suggest that this doesn't become like a barroom brawl. We have pencil and paper and write down notes so we can present, you know, whatever we want to say. That's about all I have. I think our friend Ajit Nathaniel from India is may be the furthest one attending here, unless Sienna from the Philippines is on the call. Sienna, are you with us? No, maybe she's still sleeping. Ajit, you had that story to tell?
Thanks, Steve. Nice to see everyone on here. And, like Steve told me, I'm probably the person who's most eastward on this meeting. I'm located in India. I met Barry in 2003 when I was working at a technical support desk for a major American computer company. And we've never met in person, but we've stayed in touch by email and later by social media. Around 2005, in a conversation or an email, I don't remember the details. I made a slightly shoddy use of a Yiddish word. And to fix the situation, Barry sent me a copy of The Joys of Yiddish by Leo Rosten. As a voracious reader, it kicked off, like a reading binge for me. I read pretty much everything that Leo Rosten wrote. Also, Yitzhak Zinger, Bernard Malamud. And in about 4 or 5 years, I became probably the most cocky Yiddish talking guy you could think of. And for years since, Barry and I have had this tradition of sharing, a joke that corresponds to a holiday. And I think many of you, who've seen us on Facebook might have come across the Hanukkah post office joke. But considering that, we're close, just around the Passover season, here's a running gag that we've had for, since forever. Ray Charles is invited to a Passover meal, and when handed the matzo, he has a very contemplative pause, and then he says, "Who wrote this shit?" Um, I hope we got that. But this is a joke that we've been sharing back and forth, and perhaps one of the more tame ones. But Barry's presence has enriched my life. He's always been a person I could talk to, the voice of reason in many things that happened, in my life. And it's still hard to not be able to pick up the phone and hear his voice and talk to him about stuff. But he lives on. Over the past few days, I've just been resisting the urge to tag him on things that I come across, like I've done in the past. But he definitely lives on in my thoughts.
Thanks, Ajit. I'm not going to monitor this, but I just wanted to present one more person, Elliot Seiden, who was Barry's oldest friend from elementary school. Elliot, I asked Elliot to give a toast to Barry. You need to unmute, Elliot.
While he's doing that, I'm going to shout out to Cliff Fromm, who I haven't seen in 30 years. Hey, Cliff. Where'd he go?
Where's Cliff? I don't see
Okay, now
Cliff.
I'm unmuted, right?
Okay.
Where's Cliff?
All right, should I just go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, first I'm gonna toast with a glass of vodka. And the vodka, it comes from a bottle that Barry gave me on his last visit to our house. It's some exotic Russian vodka. I don't drink it that often, but I'm gonna drink it today. I met Barry in 1951. So we've been friends for 74 years.
Wow.
We met when my family moved into the Park Hill neighborhood where his family lived. We lived around the corner from each other. So we lived 4 houses away, and we spent an awful lot of time together in those early years, all the way through high school. We pretty much did everything together. We walked to school together. We sometimes studied together. We got drunk together a lot, in high school particularly. Barry and I, he got into more trouble than I did. He was always more adventurous. But he and I have been friends since then, and we're halfway around the calendar in terms of our birthdays. Barry's birthday is May 10th. So in 9 days, he would have been 79 years old. My birthday is November 10, which is halfway around the calendar. So we got into a habit many, many years ago of calling each other up on our birthdays. When I saw him last, when I went up to visit him on February 28, 29, a couple of weeks before he died, he did open up our conversation by saying this was probably going to be you've had your last chance to wish me a happy birthday. So I wished him happy birthday in advance. I thought, how did it come to pass Barry and I could remain friends for all of these years? All of us had friends growing up, but an awful lot of friendships die out, but ours never did. And it's because he was so interesting and we had an endless conversation. He did so many things with almost no training. He worked at a nuclear substation for 5 years, helping to build nuclear subs when he knew nothing about nuclear energy or nothing about submarine warfare. But he was a big success there. He wrote a book on memory, and that was a self-taught adventure. As a lot of you guys know and women know, he was a very successful financier, and he was self-taught in finance. And then he became a SAG actor late in his life, and was a big success at doing that too. And so he and I just stayed together for all of those years because I found him endlessly fascinating. I'm not sure what he found in me, but we enjoyed each other. I think his greatest love was music. He took up the saxophone and he took up the clarinet in the early years in grade school and high school. And this is a story probably none of you will have heard, but our high school put on a production of Guys and Dolls in our sophomore year, and Barry was in the band. Barry had started drinking at an early age and kept it up for a very long time. It's amazing that didn't kill him. And he carried a flask in his clarinet case. And he was drinking all through the production in the pits. And he drank too much. And in the middle of the production, he just gets up, walks right down the center aisle of the auditorium, and has to leave because he doesn't feel well from drinking too much. And that was Barry's introduction into Guys and Dolls. When he called me to tell me of his diagnosis, he seemed to be more interested in thinking about him getting cancer as an interested observer in his own death. He was remarkably laid back about the whole thing. The only thing he really seemed to be terribly worried about was the fate of his beloved bull terrier, Lucy. And after Lucy's fate was taken care of, he just sat back and kind of relaxed and waited for his death to unfold. His great love in life was Rita McLean. Unfortunately for Barry, they were together a long time. She was his companion in life and she was his business partner. She died in 2002, and Barry never got together with another woman of the likes of Rita. In our last meeting, which I say was a couple of weeks before Barry died, I opened up a conversation again that I'd had many times with Barry, which was religion and the possibility of an afterlife. We had discussed that all through high school and many times on those other phone calls. He was very interested in it. He read a lot about it. He was very informed about it, and he was certain that there was no afterlife. He was certain that there was no God, and he was a confirmed atheist. And I wasn't of the same view of these things, and so we had interesting discussions about it. as I on the second day of my 2-day visit with Barry, I said, Barry, what if it turns out that you're wrong? What if it turns out that there is an afterlife? When I asked him that, I said, and what if it turns out that you can spend an eternity with Rita? And he just looked at me and he kind of laughed and shook his head. And that was the end of that conversation until an hour or two later, when I was getting ready to take my leave and say my last goodbye to Barry. And as I'm in the doorway, Barry yells out, 7 of clubs. And I look at him and I don't know what he's talking about. I went, so what do you mean 7 of clubs? He said, if there's something after I pass and you want me to send you a sign about it, which I'd asked him, the sign will be a 7 of clubs, which was typical of Barry. 7 of clubs as a poker symbol. And that was the last time I spoke to Barry in person. I play poker every Monday night down here in Florida. And a couple of weeks ago, damned if he didn't send me the sign. He sent me the 7 of clubs. And if you want to know all the details about it, I'll be happy to tell you. So I think Barry's listening in, and I hope he is. But Barry, if you are, wherever you are, this is to you, a dear friend. I love you dearly. I miss you. May God hold you and keep you.
Let's hear more about the 7 of clubs.
Well, the 7 of clubs comes up this way. We were playing Omaha, and if you know Omaha, you flop 3 cards and then one and then one. I was losing that night. I was losing a pretty good amount, and the guy sitting next to me plays Omaha, and on the first flop, the top card is a 7 of clubs, and that's the first time I'd seen it flop like that since I'd spoken to Barry, and I had a lousy hand, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go out. And I said, no, I can't go out. Can't go out. Barry may be sending me the sign. So I stay in, and I win that hand. And I shouldn't have, but I won the hand. And my fortunes turned around dramatically for the rest of the night. And I cleaned up. I won a lot of money. I was pulling cards like straight flushes, 4 of a kind, things that are unusual. And I just came away from the experience saying, damn it, if you didn't send me a sign. The 7 of clubs, I believed it, I played it, and it worked. So that's my explanation. You can take from it what you will, but I took from it that Barry sent me a sign.
For sure. For
So
sure
Barry's
he did.
wrong.
I had a similar experience with my mother and my grandmother. And there's no doubt in my mind, there's something beyond this. Your energy just doesn't disappear into nothing. That would be unthinkable, really. It would be, I see signs all the time from my friends and family that have passed, and I've had a couple of signs from Barry. The most recent, my wife isn't here because she's out picking up fire extinguishers, which we haven't replaced since we moved up from Jersey. And we had 2 things happen yesterday where we had a little fire in the oven, and I had a little fire in my garbage pail at my desk. So I said, you need to go check the fire extinguishers. When did they expire? When? So she's actually out buying fire extinguishers right now. And right before that happened, the first little flash fire in the air fryer, we were standing in the kitchen talking about today and about Barry. And all of a sudden, boom, this flame came out of the oven. And I'm like, look, that's the second sign today. And that's Barry. I'm like, we're standing here talking about him, and we have a flash fire in the air fryer. What are the odds of that? I mean, like I said, she'll be joining us in a little while, but she's out right now buying replacement fire extinguishers. Thank you, Barry.
Can I give you one more?
Please.
today, about 15 minutes before getting on this call, I'm scrolling through aimlessly my Facebook news feed, and up comes a picture of Dobie Gillis and the guy who played Maynard in the Dobie Gillis show. I have never got a Dobie Gillis feed on my news feed in all the time I've been doing Facebook. When Barry and I were kids, we used to go to the Jewish Community Center in Yonkers every Friday for a club. We belonged to a club called the Comets. Here's a little aside, by the way. Barry played center on our basketball team, and he wanted to change the name from Comets to Attraction, so he would be the center of attraction.
Shocking.
Yeah, but so we would always wait for my dad to pick us up, and in the game room, the TV was on, and the Dobie Gillis show was always on. And Barry always called the Dobie Gillis show the Maynard show because he liked Maynard, the beatnik character, and Barry was even beat back then. And this would be 1954, 55.
Bob Denver.
And yeah, right, exactly. And I've never gotten a news feed about the Dobie Gillis show. And I always associate anytime I hear that show with Barry, who called it the Maynard show. This pops up 15 minutes before this Zoom call. I swear I thought it was a sign from Barry again.
Of course it is. There's like no doubt in my mind hearing the story. It absolutely was. Stuff has been happening since we left his ceremony on the 15th. I can't tell you how many things that have happened that I know it's Barry coming through, giving messages. He's stirring the pot. I believe Phil Smith is on this call. I haven't talked to him in 31 years. And we reconnected through this whole thing.
If
It's
you're
just
talking about
amazing.
if you're talking about reconnecting, can I say something? I'm Barry's cousin Moshe. I live next door to Elliot, around the corner from Barry. So the first thing I have to correct is that I guess I'm the oldest person knowing Barry because I was born in 1950. And although I don't remember it, I'm sure he saw me in my first year of life because my father and his father were extremely close. And I can tell you that we had an idyllic childhood. I remember Elliot and my cousin Barry and Gibby across the street. And I am so honored to realize what good people I grew up under. But Barry was my idol, and he played clarinet. Well, I had to play clarinet in school, but I could never top him because I remember one day he's walking home with this tuba. He comes home with this giant tuba, and I immediately went to the house to play his tuba. It was up on a bunk bed. But my father and Barry's father were two stubborn gentlemen, and they had a fight just before Barry's father passed away. And the families didn't talk again for 35 years. I didn't see Barry face to face for 35 years. And all I know is that as I was growing up, I always saw him going up and down Riverdale Avenue in Yonkers in his little green GBT GT. And I knew it was my cousin, but we didn't connect. And then all of a sudden, in the last 20 years or whatever it was, he reconnected. He called us, and this guy who was a sworn atheist didn't miss one of our high holiday meals. He came to our Seder. He came to our Rosh Hashanah meals. And Barry had an unbelievably close relationship with my mother. And in the last few years, Barry and my mother passed away last year at 97. Barry and my mother would go downtown to the jazz clubs, and they just had such a great time. And when my mother passed away, one of Barry's close friends, Mrs. Mance, her husband was an incredible piano player who also passed away a few years ago. She had to meet me because Barry and my mom, who is Ann Henchy, my mom would go to these jazz clubs and everyone wanted to hang out with Barry and Ann Henchy.
Moshe, excuse me 1 minute. She was the world famous Aunt Henchy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we all knew Ann Henchy. I even know her.
Well, I grew up with Ann Henchy. She was wonderful. So go ahead, please go ahead, Moshe.
But, well, one thing I'll say, Elliot, was she was your Aunt Henchy because your mother was my Aunt Min and your father was my Uncle Max.
Yeah,
So
we were
she
all
was
aunts
your
and
Aunt
uncles
Henchy.
back then. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so I can't say more, but I miss him a lot. I'm honored to be in your presence, all of you.
As I am you, Mark. Moshe, sorry.
Thanks, Moshe.
And
Jack,
Henchy
wanna
lives
say
on.
something?
And
Jack?
Henchy lives on.
Anyone else? Some stories?
I'll just say one at the Seder table. Barry used to come to us, and he used to wear a yarmulke, and he had a thumbtack in it. It was sticking out of the top, so that was
Right.
like he always had to have some kind of a shtick. But the man was amazing with his poker playing and his book. So my sons are rabbis and Chabad rabbis, and Barry went to one of the giant meetings for the Chabad with 5,000 rabbis, and he had a booth on memory, and he had this session where he have all these rabbis in the room, and he was thinking they weren't going to be interested. They just were crazy. My son has all these clips of Barry giving his mind lessons to all these rabbis, and they just ate him up. They just, everything he could say, it was just amazing.
And I was the videographer in that at that session. And he called me Shaky Steve after that.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be able to have Barry come speak at one of our association events, and not the NAELB AACFB, but another group that our company managed at the time. And he came out to San Francisco and gave that presentation, and he gave me my signed copy of the memory book, which I still have. And my kids know who Barry is because I've gone through this with them to try to help them remember stuff. And so when I said that I'm doing a memorial for Barry, they said, "Oh, is that the book guy?" Because they just know his picture from the back of the book. And I was like, "Yeah, that's the book guy." So, even people that Barry didn't know personally, he has touched. And all his incarnations throughout his life, he's touched different people. So we should all hope to be able to touch that many people and to be able to affect their lives in that way. So I think that was really, really great that he could do that.
Is Pam on this chat? Pam was the go-between, for lack of a better word, at the end for Barry, but was so important to his last days. I'd like to see her picture if he's on this chat.
I've looked, I don't see her.
No, I don't think she registered, and I'm not sure why. But
She doesn't do computers. She doesn't do text. But whoever asked for that, I have some pictures of her. If you text me or go on my Facebook and let me know who's asking it, I could send you some of those.
she was wonderful. When Daryl and I went up to visit Barry, our last time seeing him, she hugged us. We didn't know her. She hugged us, and she was happy that we came up. And we got to spend 15 to 20 minutes with Barry, and it was a great last visit. So she did a wonderful job with Barry, as his friend
Rick.
Daryl. Rick.
Yeah, Rick.
Yeah.
When I was at the memorial service, Steve, I don't even know if I told you this yet, but she knew Barry 20 years. I don't know if any of the Lippmans are on the call, but his friend Mike Lippman, he passed quite a few years ago, and that's how Barry met Pam, because Pam was taking care of Mike. So in any event, Pam came to me, Steve, at the memorial service on the 15th, and she said, I've seen Barry. Oof. This is hard. She said, I've seen Barry cry 2 times in his life. The first time was when you and Steve left that day. The second time was when his sister's daughter showed up on the day everything was ending for Barry. They went up to Vermont and they were with him. So that's the only 2 times she's seen him cry in 20 years.
She said that the 2 nieces crawled into bed with him and surrounded him and hugged him so hard. And when they stopped hugging him, he just burst into tears.
Yep. Yep. She told me the same story.
I was not planning on speaking. I'm one of Barry's nieces. I'm Jackie. My sister Michelle is on here somewhere too. And I was kind of afraid, Michelle was also, that you would ask us to share stories, but we don't have them because we were estranged from him for so many years. Moshe, a distant cousin who I haven't seen in forever, and Zipporah, I see you there too. Our families, that's the way we do things. I guess everybody just stops talking. But Barry came down a week before. He told us he had cancer, actually. And I think he knew, and he came to say goodbye to our mom, who has dementia and would be very confused by this phone call. She doesn't know anything that happened to her brother. And we reconnected, and it was just so lovely. And then a week later, when he told us he had cancer, Michelle and I, when he told us his plans, we said, we're there, we're coming. And I unmuted really to talk about Pam because, excuse me.
You want me to speak, Jackie?
Pam was so incredible, so nurturing and loving. I got that hug from her also, Daryl, before, during, and after. We were in Vermont for probably, what, Mish, less than 24 hours.
Yes.
And everything just transpired as Pam had planned. She had a legal pad with step-by-step of how everything was going to go. And man, did she take care of business.
She was an angel, an angel.
It was wonderful, wonderful. I'm sorry to say
and
that
it was
she's
all
not here.
according to Barry's wishes. I'm
Yeah.
Michelle, I'm his other niece, Jackie's sister.
And tell us about how we didn't like the first place and you moved from that cottage to the
Holiday Inn.
typical Barry. That's typical Barry story.
So
I'm sure.
apparently, because the law, they call it Act 39 of Vermont, is so new, allowing non-residents to come in for this, there's no place for them to go. Most people will die in their home, but when you're a non-resident, you don't have it. The hospice workers are raising money to build a facility that is like a home where people can come from out of state. But Pam made arrangements with this Airbnb. The woman, I forgot her name, Frances, I think. She said, come, I have a room for Barry. I have a room for you, Pam. I have a room for Barry's nieces. And that's where we were planning on going. And then we get a text from Pam, don't go to the Airbnb, come to this hotel instead. Barry told me he doesn't want to die in Alaska. So we wondered what that was. I thought maybe the place was very cold. Michelle hit it. She said, I bet it's decorated with like bears and, that folky style, like quilts and whatever. And Barry wanted none of that. So he and Pam spent one night at the Airbnb and then said, get me out of here. I'm going to take me to a hotel.
There wasn't.
And if I could just go ahead, Steve.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to say something about the hotel. It was kind of interesting too. So we don't know if it's legal to do what we did in a hotel. Perhaps the police needed to be called. Perhaps there's paperwork that needs to be filled out. You know, when you have someone who's passed away, something. So we were all kind of hiding from the lobby. Rick was there and he talked about like going to the lobby and getting a drink. He's like, I don't know if I should show my face. They see us going in and out of these rooms. Nobody knows why we're here. Well, it just so happens our room, Pam's room, and Barry's room were on the first floor down the end of a hallway near a side entrance. Rick was upstairs somewhere. And when Barry passed, Pam had to call the hospice people who came in and confirmed his death. And then they had to call the funeral home. Again, don't know the protocol here. So wouldn't you know, the funeral home pulled up to the side of the hotel. Michelle, you should tell this because I wasn't there.
Okay, so they did pull up, but we had arranged for them to pull up. Everyone was very discreet in their comings and goings from hospice to the funeral home. And I was on the lookout so we could get a gurney in. And Barry would have been hysterical because the running joke was, why is everyone here? And I jokingly said, we came for a bar mitzvah. And that was going to be our story. And we're in the middle of a very, Jackie, what's the best way to describe Brattleboro, Vermont?
I don't want to offend anyone, but
No, like, it wasn't. It's very laid back, very organic.
Very
it's
hippie, very hippie.
Yes.
I was going to say granola, but I mean that in the best of all ways.
I was going to use some other choice words, but you did okay. I was going Barry style.
Yeah, it wasn't. Barry was a city boy. So when we learned that he wanted to move venues, as it were, we all laughed about it, actually. And we were the whole thing was what my sister was driving at is we were very discreet and it was kind of covert. And Barry, I think, would have been very proud of us how we got him out as quietly as possible. Through the side door.
And no one knew. It was done.
But the time that we had, we got in, we flew in rather late the night before. And we did crawl into bed. Jackie dove into bed. It was more the thing with Barry. And it was just.
I wanted to show him some pictures on my phone. And that was the best way to do it, was to lay next to him / on him.
Because we will say, when he came in to see our mom, we had this kumbaya moment. And it was a good reconnection. And if you could pack a lot of love into the 2 months from that point until he chose his time to end, I'm grateful for that time. And it was a privilege to be with him at the end. It was very peaceful. And for everyone who didn't know through Facebook what Rick was doing, we all were holding on to him, whether it was a hand on a leg. We were telling him we loved him as he gently fell asleep.
And you all gave the finger. And you all gave the
We did in one picture. We did give the finger in one picture.
I'll hold it in front of the screen.
It was a fuck cancer moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my son and my brother both have homes in Vermont. It's right near Mount Snow. My son, my brother, we're a ski family. So my son has a ski house up there, and Barry knew that. And my son said to me, I wouldn't mind Barry staying in the house, but it's kind of creepy. He can kill himself, and be in my house. So I just don't know what to do. So we let it ride. But, going back to Barry was a man of mystery, and we got a lot of different groups here that he kind of kept separate, and if we all put pieces of the puzzle together, we'll learn more about Barry. So Barry called me up, a few months ago, and he said, I'm going to the airport for 1 day. Where do you park? At Newark Airport. Oh, I figured he was going he had a shoot. of someplace, or he had an interview that he had to be one day. I told him the garage I parked, and that was it. And it turns out that was a day he flew down to Florida to see your mom, and he never told me different, and that was Barry. But I'm sure if I uh, questioned him on that and a lot of things, he would have told me. But if you didn't ask him, he wouldn't volunteer. That was Barry, international man of intrigue.
So just out of curiosity, how many people on here by raise of hands know Barry from the finance industry? So a good number. How many from his acting days? And I guess how many from childhood, growing up, family? And I don't know what else. Is there somebody that's other? I don't know.
Anybody from the poker club here? Is anybody from the poker?
I'm Barry started playing poker when he was about 14, and I was in those poker games. So I played poker with Barry for 4 years, from 14 to 18, and he was very good at it. He was very good at it. Even then, he was very good at it.
Pool too. He taught me how to shoot pool in my 20s.
Yeah, he taught me how to shoot pool too. All the bad stuff Barry taught me. He told my mother once that he taught me how to burp, fart, and at the same time, for which my mother was not very pleased.
Barry learned to play poker. I just found out within the last year from him, because my grandfather, who I had absolutely no connection to, didn't know I was scared of the guy. He was a scary guy. He says, "Oh no, Grandpa came to us every Wednesday night and played poker with my father and his friends." So Barry had a poker game going on at the house since he was a little boy. And I think my grandfather was the leader of this thing.
At the memorial on the 15th, Barry's favorite dealer from a poker club in Washingtonville, in Orange County, she was there. Remember?
Oh, right. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were going up to visit Barry, Daryl and I, for the last time, I said, "Daryl, I got to ask him about that New York Times." No, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Well, I asked Barry a number of years ago. I said, "Tell me, how do you do the New York Times? How do you know that?" He said to me, "Don't ask." He said, "Because you'll be disappointed that it's so simple." I didn't know that it was so simple, but we never asked him, and we had.
But we did ask him, Steve. When you and I were there, I asked him for you. Do you remember what he answered you? He said, "Steve, it's in the fucking book." The memory book. He's got it in the memory book.
Right.
That was his answer on his deathbed. Right. This guy's trying to learn his tricks, and he looks at Steve. He says, "Steve, if you want to know, it's in the fucking book." Oh, we cracked up. Pam told me she could hear the laughter upstairs. She said she hadn't heard him laugh since he got the whole diagnosis. And she said, we were down there and she could hear what was going on. She had gone upstairs to leave us alone with them. She said, "You guys were laughing and laughing and laughing." She said it was the best medicine that he had.
I mean, we spent 20 minutes or so with Barry, and we gave him a hug and we left, and it was a sad day.
It was, but it was a good day.
Yeah. So
glad we made that trip.
We need to hear from some of the other groups here. Some of his acting friends.
I'd like to say something, Steve.
Yeah,
about you often.
Yeah, you would love to say stuff about Barry. What a mensch. I only met him in 2018. I saw him in a play, and we met afterwards, and I got him to come to Pages, our theater group. He acted in 3 of my plays. Fantastic. Had just a real he was a natural on the stage. The funny thing is that he had trouble memorizing lines. So even though he was a memory expert, but he was great at ad-libbing. And so but he was fantastic. I'm going to post later today on my Facebook page a lot of the pictures of him on stage. And if you want to see a picture of him with having gotten hit in the face with a pie, that's there as well. When he plays Blinky the Clown, and so he gets hit with a pie in the face. We've got a lot of other, really. I mean, most of the pictures have him holding a martini, but
Shocking.
what are you gonna do?
I've seen him hold that martini a lot of times.
But he's been in. I've seen him in so many different character roles in pages, and he was just always fantastic. Always put a lot into it, and I miss the hell out of him. It just
my wife and I, Elaine, went to one of his early shows, and when we walked in, we asked, can we go backstage afterwards? And we didn't know this was an off Broadway production, and we said, can we go backstage? We're close friends of Barry's, and they told us, no, don't worry about it. And the truth of the matter was there was no backstage.
If you haven't seen, I'm sorry, Dirk, I'm sorry. I just don't want I just put 2 pictures in the chat. Pam is in one of them.
Saw them, yeah. Oh, Pam, yeah, that's from Black Sheep. Oh no, that's different.
No, Pam, his healthcare friend.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Not
so
our
in the
Pam.
2 photos, Pam is in the top photo. She's in the pink, and my sister and I are on the sides with our "fuck you, cancer." And then at the bottom, just because I love it, is a picture of me, Michelle, and Barry. Uncle Barry when we climbed into his bed. And then, of course, he had to tell me to get up because I was hurting him. Oh, good. Someone's sharing them.
Nice.
Wasn't there something in Vermont? Pam was actually telling me the story where he needed some medical attention before the final day, something with his ankle. He sprained it or broke it or.
Yes. So I don't know if that happened in Vermont or the day before. I think it happened the day before, the day they actually left. He stumbled and sprained his ankle. And then he went for his second interview with the hospice workers, or the Right to Die. I don't know the organization actually. And then they let him do the third interview, telehealth, because of his ankle. So Pam didn't have to pack him up into the car and make him walk on it. But yes, his ankle was sprained when we were up there.
Oh, I heard that ride up to Vermont was quite a ride, according to Pam. Daryl, you told me that story.
Yeah, she said she was ready to kill him on the way up.
I'm sure.
Yeah. That she said it was quite a ride now. She was like, I was ready to take him out of the car on the side of the road and end it right there. Of course, jokingly. I mean, she didn't really mean that, but you know how Barry can be. Sometimes it's like, oh! And he was being Barry all the way up to Vermont.
Just to get back to his work, he directed and filmed 2 of my husband's plays. They are solo plays that I did, and I have them forever. And he was so patient. I'm not a diva, so he appreciated that. But he was patient, and once in a while he'd put the plug into the wrong whatever, but he was patient with himself as well. He was just beautiful to work with. Wonderful to work with.
I wish I would have known him when he was younger. I really wish I would have known him those years. since we only met him.
Hey, Neil Zobler.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I'm here.
Elliot, who mentioned
Yes.
vodka. Did you mention a bottle of vodka?
I did.
You did. Yes, and you reminded me of a part that Barry played, which I will cherish for the rest of my life. He played Putin, and Putin and he was just so good at playing Putin, but it was a funny Putin, but it was a serious. It was just tremendous that he got to do this, and you can look at it if you want. Everyone, it's on YouTube. Putin and the Priest, and anyway, it was just so magnificent having him act in it, and he had his dog barking in the background. So my son had to quickly edit it out and put a make-believe crowd sounds in it. But he said, "Did you ever take that part out?" I said, "No, really, we just went over it." So his dog, Lucy, even made a debut in that film. But
That's on YouTube.
it's on YouTube with my name, Linda Pilata, at YouTube. And then you put in Putin and the Priest, and you'll see it. Just scroll down to videos. But it was good.
I could just imagine.
What he also didn't know, but maybe he probably did know, because something weird happened that day, April 7th, when I got a notification that it actually won an award in India for the best short. And I was and I said, "Barry, you see that?" And it was Zoom, and it still won because of Martin and Barry. So
I was the priest.
Yeah.
Hey, Neil, you go back a long time with Barry. I'm sure you have.
I do. Like you, I go back until the 1980s. We started off as serious competitors in the finance industry. We're always chasing after the same sources of loan originations. And we converted that into a friendship that lasted straight through until the end of his life. I mean, I was very close to Barry, and to the point where I'm the guy who took the photographs of Barry that he used for his book. And he was practicing a lot of the presentations that he would do with me. And I still, to this day, he shared with me a system to remember passwords. That is the system that I use to this day. It's in the book, but it's basically, take a name, write it backwards, and skip a letter, and then add the 2 letters from the website that you're going into. That way you create a different password for every website. And it was really, every time I use it, I think of Barry. Matter of fact, in order to remember some of my passwords, I just write down the word Barry password. So he's with me all the time.
Too. He tried to teach me that system. I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, it's very simple. It's a simple algorithm.
Right.
Next time I see you, Steve, we'll sit down. I'll show you again.
All right. We'll do that soon. Hey, George, I'm sure you got some stories. We had some fun times together.
Well, I was one of the few, I guess, who met him through his memory book project. And I've only known him about, I guess I would say 12 or 15 years. At the time, I was in the NYPD, and they used to bring in, every so often, they would bring in different people to give us little training classes. And one day, I don't know how they found Barry, but they brought Barry in to do his memory presentation to us, people at the rank of captain. They called it executive development. And if anyone has seen his memory presentation, it was amazing. He did tricks worthy of David Blaine, or it was just tricks that boggled the mind. And I think someone mentioned the New York Times crossword puzzle. I guess you were talking about that part of his presentation. He would start by giving out copies of that morning's New York Times crossword puzzle, already completed. And to me, that was impressive, because he had completed the New York Times crossword puzzle by 8 a.m. I don't think I could have completed it by 8 p.m. but I'm sorry, I'm hearing noise in the background. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Oh, okay, good. But what he would do is he would give the class copies of that morning's New York Times crossword puzzle already completed, and then he would go to the blackboard and recreate the entire puzzle with the clues and the answers from memory without looking at anything, and it was amazing. And he would go on from there to do memory demonstration after memory demonstration that were just mind-boggling. And to this day, I still don't know how he did it. I know it's in the book, but I think I could read that book 100 times and still not be able to do that. But in any case, after the class, I wanted to chat with him, and I walked up and began chatting with him. And within 5 minutes, we were talking about William F. Buckley Jr., the decriminalization of marijuana. I mean, all sorts of topics, because he was such an interesting man. And when you talk to him, the conversation just flowed from one topic to another. And he told me he was working on a book about his memory techniques, and he was looking for people to proofread and edit. And I told him I've done some proofreading and editing. And the next thing I know, I was proofreading and editing his book. And after a little while, at a certain point, I don't know how he chose me, but he chose me to write the foreword for the book. And I ended up writing the foreword for the book as well. So our friendship just blossomed. Now, we were both very politically oriented, but we had philosophical differences in the area of politics. And we used to have some epic Facebook battles about political issues that were, for the longest, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun because we were both into it, and we were both able to express ourselves verbally. And people used to say to us, you should have a talk show. You two guys should have a talk show. Now, unfortunately, I guess as the country became more polarized and people became more polarized, we became polarized. And what the political differences that I guess were part of the basis of our friendship, eventually they led to us becoming estranged. And for about 2 or 3 years, we didn't talk at all, which made me sad. I missed him because he was one of the few people in my life that I could talk about pretty much any topic. He was a Renaissance man, and he added a lot of interest to my life. And unfortunately, I missed him when we weren't talking.
Yeah.
When I found out that he was sick, we reconciled. I wanted to make sure that we were in touch if he was ill. And
George, I was a little worried about telling you about passing that information on about Barry.
Well, I originally got it from another mutual friend, and then I think you told me afterward, and then a few people reached out to me to tell me.
From Chris. Yeah, is Chris still on the line here? Chris was on earlier, and Chris is a playwright making a movie, and if he's not here, I guess I can pass on the information. But he had been talking to Barry about having a leading role in his upcoming movie.
Wow, that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
that would have been amazing. So anyway, I was fortunate that I was able to reconcile and be back in touch with Barry about 2 months before he passed away. I was able to get together with him one last time. We went to a jazz club with some other friends of Barry's, and I was fortunate that I was able to be in touch with him again at the end. It's a friendship I'll always value. I'll always remember Barry. He added a lot to my life, and I wish he were still here.
Yeah, I was happy to see that, George. Thank you. Yeah.
If I could, can I throw in one more thing? I was also privileged a couple of times through Barry to meet his sister Froma, and what a lovely lady she is. I'm so sorry to hear she's not doing well now.
Right.
Thank you
I'd like
for
to,
that.
I'd like to say
George.
something, Steve. Steve, I'd like to say something. I'm one of the people that knew Barry from his days in finance. I met Barry in the early 90s, and there's so many people that are on this call who I knew back in the early 90s. Neil and Wayne and Stanley was here, and Daryl. And Barry came to Florida to meet us because I worked for a funder, and he came to Florida to meet us. And we loved Daryl. I love Daryl too. We love Daryl too, but we loved Barry and we loved Rita. And I used to talk to them all the time. And when he came to Miami the first time, and we took him out for dinner and drinks and more drinks and more drinks and more drinks and more drinks. And we were all just like totally blasted. And Barry got sick on the drive back. And the next day he said, "I'm so embarrassed that I got sick in front of you." And it was just a couple of us at that point. And I said, "Barry," I said, "we weren't embarrassed for you. We were just having such a good time. We didn't care." And whenever I was together with Barry or Daryl, it was always laughs and it was always fun. And the leasing industry was a lot of fun back there. And to all the people that are on this call that I knew from back then, hello, and it's really good to see you all.
Good seeing you, D.
Yeah, ditto. I did
Hey,
when Barry was at my studio taking the photographs, one of the things that he told me is, I have a really bad memory. And I said, "How did you write this book?" He said, "Well, I wrote the book because I use a system, mnemonics." And he said, "That's the basis of the book, and it works for me very well. But I would admit that I don't have a good memory." And the gentleman who was on before, who said that he kept on forgetting his lines, really made me laugh when he was in a play.
Yeah, that was very that was very funny. First off, he was a very hard worker, and again, really good at improvising. But it was interesting that method, the mnemonic method, didn't work for remembering the lines. He could tell you what word was on what page and where it was, and he could do amazing things, but he was actually on stage doing it. There could be issues. And so, but we worked around it, and he had great shows, and the audience loved him, and he was fantastic. So
each show ended up being different and interesting as being his scene partner in that piece.
yes, Martin was scene partner with him in a play called Lunch and a Zombie. And Martin, you really shepherded him through that one. And
Elaine and I went
I had to make
that.
sure I knew the play backwards and forwards because I never knew what he was or not going to say that night.
Elaine and I went to see that show.
Interesting.
Elaine and I went to see that show. We really enjoyed it. And as an outsider, I have no knowledge of of your theater business, but when we went to the shows, and we went to a bunch of them, we didn't think Barry was acting because, knowing him as well as we did, he didn't seem to be acting. He was just playing himself.
That's the highest compliment.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like. And so we really enjoyed those shows. There are a couple of people that have been quiet that go back with Barry a long time in my industry, the finance. That's Omar Diaz and Ron Elwood, two people who can share information about Barry from early on.
I'd like to say something.
What do you say, guys?
I'd like to say something about it. Okay.
We'd like to hear it, Wayne.
Hi, Joan.
Hi. And Wayne wants to say something.
Yeah.
I met Barry back in the late 80s, and we were both a member of a group called the Old Leasing Guys. And there's several of them, John Winchester, and a bunch of others that some of you may or may not know. And he did his memory class. This was in 1990 in St. Croix, because he always picked an outside place to go to have fun and learn and talk about and experience what the industry was all about. and he gave that credit class there. And it was an absolute just fun time. We all drank. I remember I won $900 because of I just placed a bet on the Super Bowl, and somehow I won $900, and it was just a hoot. And I've always had fun with it. And then I put a call into it, or he called me back about 2 months before he passed. And you know, I'm always one. I've had a lot of medical issues myself over the years, and I've got some insight into some things that can help you. And I said, Barry, you need to listen to me. I've got something that will really help you. He said, Wayne, I don't want to talk about it. I'm ready to go. I says, but Barry, and he says, listen, Wayne, I don't want to talk about it. I said, okay, well, and he hung up. So that's the worst day that I realized that I didn't get to talk about it. And but he was always a fabulous person, just a great individual, and fun to be around. And I'm going to miss him.
Hey, Ron, I remember he used to drive down to South Carolina to see you guys and bring Nathan. And I'm not sure the feedback afterwards, who people were happy to see, Harry or Nathan.
Yeah, no, it was all very welcome company. Nathan was hugely popular in the office. Of course, Barry was. And you probably remember at that time, Steve, we had a team of we had to have had 75 people in our offices, and Barry would come down to visit pretty regularly, like you said, and he would come through the office with Nathan, and everybody knew Barry. I mean, he was a friend to everybody in the office. Everybody loved spending time with him. He was such an engaging personality, and genuinely cared about everybody that he spent time with, and wanted to get to know. And he's one of those people, you know, the gentleman that founded our company, a lot of you on the call know and remember Dwight Galloway. He and Dwight were incredibly close. And not just Dwight, most importantly Dwight, but a lot of people in our office. He had that way of connecting with people like very few people can. Just incredibly engaging. I know everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say that. He's just one of those people that you meet him and you're immediately intrigued, because he was just that fascinating of a person. And you know, he did teach the memory shot class to our team in South Carolina, and of course everybody was completely fascinated. You know, how can this guy memorize the New York Times crossword puzzle? We wanted to know, and he, of course, it's like you said, it's in the book. That was about as much as you were going to get. But you know, one of the things I will always love and appreciate about Barry was his sense of humor. And if you guys get a chance, I posted a link to a YouTube video in the comment section. I will always remember there was one particular visit. He shared a video, and some of you may know of this, but it's a recording of Joe Cocker performing with a little help from my friends at Woodstock in 1969. And there's this one particular video. It's a silly video where somebody posted fake lyrics, because you could never tell what Joe Cocker was singing, right? You have no idea what was coming out of his mouth. And so the lyrics were irreverent, completely not what he was saying, but they were hilarious. And I remember
Wonder Bread
that
video
was the funniest thing. And he shared that with us. And so I put that link in the comments if you guys get a chance to check it out. That was Barry. He was always had a smile on his face. Just loved people. Of course, loved his bull terriers, and just a fantastic human being. He was as much a friend as he was an industry colleague, and we'll definitely miss him.
You know, and I thank Barry for really getting me involved with RLC at the time, now Navitas. And you know, while I knew Dwight, Barry made sure that that Dwight and I became friends to do business with you. And you know, and I thank Barry to this day for that connection.
Barry said a joke about Billy and the. Does anyone know that joke? I wish I could remember. Does anyone know that about Billy? Fuck you, little Billy, he goes at the end. Oh, it's driving me crazy to remember.
Hey, Omar Diaz, I'm sure you got some stories.
He's on mute.
Barbarella, what do you say?
To all you finance guys, does anyone know they had a better 1-800 number than Barry?
1-800 ball guy.
Ball guy.
What happened to that number, Moshe?
I don't know.
They acquired from
I think
Barry.
they retired it after Barry.
It's interesting to see the pictures of him wearing a wig. He looks so different with hair in his head. I happened to acquire one of his 800 numbers. He apparently hoarded several of them. I got the 800 lease 03 and have put that to good use. My recollections of Barry, I had interaction with Barry when he was involved with the NAEOB leasing school. And I just thinking about the dichotomy between his being so extremely coarse sometimes, F-bombs everywhere, and being completely blunt and completely comfortable with being blunt about whatever he would say, while simultaneously being able to divine and distinguish between a subtle change in words and rearranging this phrase or that to have a more impactful marketing message for us. And I'm just amazed at the incredible genius that he was. He could be himself in so many unique ways, but the ability to be both coarse and fine-tuned at the same time was uniquely Barry.
I think he hoarded website URLs too. So there's a whole lot of websites that are probably getting ready to come back on the market.
I have one of those too.
That's a problem because he hoarded domain names.
Mm-hmm.
And our little playwright actor group pages, he volunteered independently of anybody else's knowledge to make websites for people. So, you know, he would just say, buy me a martini, and, you know, he'd take care of it. But so I'm working with Martin, actually. I mean, I had his member number with GoDaddy, and Martin had his password. And so we're trying to notify people that, you know, their names and their websites, or just maybe their domain that they've never had a website yet, is going to go bye-bye, you know, unless we figure out when it expires so they can take it over. Yeah, I had that in common. I mean, I would come up with an idea and register it, and same thing with Barry. You know, he'd have a couple of martinis at midnight, and his brain would start getting very creative, and he would go to GoDaddy and see if that domain was taken yet.
Available. I can chime in and tell you that Rick, who is the executor of my uncle's estate, told us that he was going to reach out to all the people that he could find just from financial accounts who paid for accounts, so he could let them know it's no longer going to be maintained, of course.
No, that's who I got my information from Rick.
Okay.
He's doing a lot of work with the house. I saw him the other day.
I'm sorry.
Barry built 2 websites for me, and he has usernames and passwords. And he told me that he thought he had more time, that he was going to create some video and show people how he could go about transferring that information and creating our own usernames.
Joan, your audio is not good.
I think Joan was saying that she thought he had more time and he was going to show people how to get access to their domains.
Yeah, he built 2. I'll put it in the chat, but I would love to know how to get that username and password information, because I think 2 domains that he hosted or put up through GoDaddy for me will go bye-bye.
Your
Yeah,
mention, your mention of martinis made me think of two great classic Barry lines. One of the things he used to say in his memory presentation was that he developed his system because he had a poor memory. And he used to say that he lost his memory because of medications that he was taking. And then he would pause and say, some of the medications were official and some of them were self-prescribed. And the other thing I remember is that whenever we would have our Facebook battles about philosophy and politics and so forth, he would always end them by saying, we have to continue this over Stoli. And so when we got together, the last time we got together was in February. Barry put together a little gathering of friends to get together at a jazz club. And I said to him, before we got together, I said, are we finally going to have our big debate over Stoli? And he said, now I can't take Stoli. I can't drink Stoli now because I'm taking medications and I'm not allowed to drink. So
I know.
So I said, you cheated me, Reitman. I've been practicing for years for this big Stoli debate, and now you can't have Stoli. This isn't fair.
You know, our last visit, he came for dinner to our home in January, and Stolichnaya, and he said to me, "Here's a bottle, and compare it to the bottle of Stoli you have there," and we couldn't tell the difference. And he pointed out correctly to us that Stolichnaya is the original that's now bottled in Latvia, and Stoli, if you buy Stoli, it's the Stolichnaya that's
Russia.
That's not Russian. That's
Ah,
that's sold all over the rest of the world. But if you want to get the original, you get Stolichnaya.
wow.
And I got that bottle of Stolichnaya.
That's
But when the
amazing.
Ukraine thing happened, he became very pro-Ukrainian grain.
Right.
Yeah, vodka is made with wheat, not potatoes. I learned that in Moscow.
Really?
Really?
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and Barry always brought me our Hasidic family. He loved it because he always brought me the largest bottle of vodka he could find.
Yeah, we drank some vodkas together over the years.
His knowledge of jazz was incredible. Thanks to him, I learned about Junior Mance, and I got to see Junior Mance in person a couple of times. Junior Mance was a jazz great, a little lesser known than Louis Armstrong and so forth, but he was a jazz great who had been around for a long time, and he was still playing live in New York. He was playing at a club, I believe it was on 13th Street once a week. And thanks to Barry, I learned about his music and got to see him in person. It was incredible.
Yeah, we had the same experience, George. Elaine and I go down to see Junior, and he passed away. And Gloria remained a friend of Barry's for the rest of his life. I don't know why Gloria wasn't on the call today, but yes, Barry was charming. Barry was a real charming man, and he charmed every woman that he knew, and he charmed my wife.
Wow.
And
I got his handmade pipe that he made on a Bridgeport Miller about 45 years ago. He honored me with giving me this on the last day.
on our last visit.
On our last visit, and Steve and I split his last bag of stash. Couldn't have been a better gift.
Yeah, right.
And I got the sand cast of spice that he had made back in the 80s too. So that's on my fireplace mantle now.
Wow.
Well, Barry offered me his pot growing system but I don't want buds anymore. I like THC, so I didn't take it. But I guess that's our connection.
Well,
You know,
we'll have to
I
get together
remember.
and share a bowl.
I'll always remember that visit. We didn't spend a lot of time, 20 minutes, because he was weak, and I gave him a hug, and I knew that was going to be the last time. And he looked at Daryl and he waved Daryl in. He says, "Come here," and he gave Daryl a big hug too.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few days before he died, he wrote me an email and he said, "You enriched my life." But oh, how he enriched mine, and I think everybody else's here. He gave so much of himself, and I'll always remember him, as I think everybody will.
He was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
One of a kind.
Yes.
One of a kind.
Look at all the
very,
friends he
very
left.
nicely said, Rosina.
Larger than life type of guy is how I like to explain him. One of a kind and larger than life, and a real pain in the ass too.
He sure could be.
What did he say about this gathering? I wonder.
I think Steve hit that on the head the other day when you had made a comment about if he saw all the comments on Facebook. What was your? You had said something about, gee, if Barry could see how many people loved him, he would be finished. I know you have trouble recalling things, but you had said something very profound about it. Steve's checking his notes.
I don't remember. Omar's trying to call me now. So, yeah, I don't remember what I said. I said a lot.
It's posted on his Facebook.
Yeah.
It's posted on his Facebook about a week or so ago. You said something like, if Barry were watching what was going on, I think it was maybe your comment, because I think you were away at the time.
If there's a Facebook in heaven, and
yes, that one.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Barry's looking down and smiling on us.
On my last visit with Barry, one of the things I asked him in a moment of real serious discussion things, well, I said, "Barry, do you have any idea why so many people are drawn to you and why you have so many friends?" And he really was stunned by the question. He looked at me with a look of puzzlement on his face. And first he smirked and laughed. I said, "No, I'm really serious, because I believe that's the case with you. And I'd like to know what you think about it." And he really didn't have a clue about the impact that he's had on all of us. And he said, "Well, I think the answer would be one, I'm very insecure. And because of my insecurities, I was performing. And people reacted to the performance, but it's all a performance."
I don't think it's a performance. I think that Barry and my mother were of the same bloodline, because when my mother passed away, I got phone call after phone call after phone call, and everyone said, "I've lost my best friend." I actually wrote that on her stone. "I've lost my best friend." And I'm hearing the same thing in all of you about losing Barry.
Well, I didn't agree with what he said, but I regarded it as an indication that he just was not aware of the impact that he had on people.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to me how many friends he had, and how he made everyone special. Now, I thought that I had been over the years his closest friend, and I was shocked to see how many other people believed that they were his closest friend as well.
That was a special gift he had. He made everyone feel loved and important. And that was his sweet charm. And he had a marvelous sense of humor, and he truly, truly cared about people.
Yeah.
He liked people. He cared, but he really liked people. He enjoyed meeting people, meeting different kinds of people, and he enjoyed being with people. And you could sense that. You really could sense that. When you were with him, you knew he was enjoying the experience.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love traveling. I love traveling with Barry to conventions, to driving down to Baltimore to the crab feast, to those horrible crabs that we with that stuff on it that made your eyes tear. But it was all laughs the whole trip. Every time we went on a trip together, we just laughed the whole time. And
I would
it was fun.
call him and chat with him, and I told him that, Barry, I don't remember if I called you yesterday. Forgive me, I'm having some problem with my memory. Give me your address. Where do you live? So I sent my address to him. Next day, this beautiful book was there in the mail, and it was signed by him saying, to my friend, Michael, and few other notes with it. But he just had a gift of just touching people, which was unbelievable. It was a very gifted
Hey,
man.
I'm sorry. Let me just jump in. We have Omar on the phone here. He's got a martini and a toast ready, but he says nobody could hear him. Can anybody provide him technical support?
Yeah, he just didn't unmute his.
He says he has. Patricia's on the phone with him right now, and I don't really want to jump off the call here. I don't want to miss anything.
The
If
Maybe
any,
he should
It's only
disconnect
his
and
mic.
reconnect.
Yeah, I think he should log off and come back on.
that's exactly what I said.
His participant says he's only using a mic and not a camera. So I don't know. Maybe he called in on a
I
telephone.
see. Yeah, I see. Oh, yes.
Well,
yes.
let me.
Does he have audio? Can he hear
He's
what I'm saying on the
unmuted.
Zoom call? Can he hear? I'm talking about him here, trying to get him help.
But let me give you a little background. Omar didn't even know how to register for this.
Okay.
I had to register him.
Omar?
He's unmuted now, so I don't know.
Yeah, I see he unmuted.
Omar, say something.
The phone just died on me. Could you catch it?
Omar, can you hear us? Give it a testing 1, 2, 3, Omar.
Omar? Yes.
He says he could see everybody, he could hear everybody, but is he on the telephone trying to talk, or is he on the meeting trying to talk? Unmute your microphone is the only option, or sign off and sign back on.
Yeah, I suggest you sign off and sign back in, because when you sign in, it gives you the option of calling in with the phone or using.
Do you hear what they're saying, Omar?
Use your tablet or your cell phone. I mean, I'm doing this on my cell phone.
Yeah, Neil,
he's on the meeting because it would show up with a phone number if he dials
Yeah, he
in.
says he can hear and see all of us, but we can't hear and see him. And Neil, he heard what you were saying. I think he's going to try that.
Great.
Because there's no camera connected.
Yeah, there's no camera.
Right.
And his audio is not fluctuating if he's talking. So it's not working.
He says that he has a glass of that Stolio in front of him, watching everybody and having a drink on
Well, he wants to make a toast. He wants to make a toast.
Make a toast to Barry?
No, listen to what he's saying. He's saying he wants to make a toast, but he can't because we can't see him or hear him. If you want to, Omar, if you want to tell me the toast, I will repeat it to everybody because they can hear me. So Omar says there's no specific toast, but he loved the guy to death. And he also pissed him off all the time, many occasions. And he wants to wish him well, and he wants to toast Barry, and he wants to toast everybody here.
Thanks, Omar.
And he'll see you, and he'll see Barry on the other side. And with that, did you happen to hear Elliot's story about the 7 of clubs?
Wonderful story.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yes, and everybody, I've relayed your message. You probably heard me. You probably heard me announcing it to them, correct? Okay, great.
Yeah, and Omar, we'll see you on your visit
Say that again.
up to us.
Yeah. Should be gone in a couple of months. Okay. To Cliff, to Phil Smith, Steve Geller, Omar's going to jump off, and he wishes you all well. He loves you all, and he wishes you could see him too. And D, Omar says hello, and he wishes you well, and he hopes everything is good with you. I'll call you later.
Tell him I said hi.
I will. I'm going to let him go, but I will. I'm going to call him after the call.
Okay.
He said thank you, everybody, for improvising for him. That was very important to him. He still wanted to make the toast himself.
Jackie, are you trying to say something? Oh, okay. I thought you were. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. This was great to hear stories of Barry from other iterations of his life, and it was so colorful. And he was such a amazing and interesting and colorful human being. So I hope he was totally wrong, and that he's out there and he was here with us on this call today. And I'm sure that would really tick him off to know he was wrong. And we were right.
But he deserves
Got
it.
so mad at me.
He deserves it
Monica, how
because
do
he
we
pissed
find
me
this?
off too.
How do we find this on YouTube, Monica?
I'll post it on our AACSB webpage, and then I will put a link. You want me to put a link on Barry's YouTube or his Facebook
that'd be
page?
great.
Okay. Yeah.
Because a number of people couldn't make it for conflicts and such.
Sure.
Great that the recurring theme is, I think every single person that's still left on the call, at some point, he really pissed off.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is just the greatest.
He sure did.
That's so good to hear because I thought I was the only one.
Oh no.
Oh no. You're in good company.
I had a whole list of things do not discuss with Barry. I just let it go, right? I just let it go.
Right.
I also found that his behavior was much worse on Facebook than in person. And I stopped communicating with him on Facebook.
No question about it, Elliot.
Yeah, no question
much
about
better
it.
in person or on the phone, but on Facebook he lost all inhibition on Facebook, and he'd say anything.
You know, Elliot, I would say to my wife Elaine, I said, "Why is he being such an asshole? Why can't he just tone it down a bit?"
The kids call that a keyboard warrior.
Yeah,
He was definitely one of those.
I told him many times to tone it down, and he told me to fuck you.
Yeah, and we all did.
He was
We
a
all.
He
monster.
did tone it down then.
Yeah.
Well, he toned it off.
But
Well,
everybody
thank-
still
when he got
loved him,
really
no matter
angry
how
with
much
me.
he pissed everybody off. Everybody still loved him. Everybody's here. Elliot went to see him. Other people went to see him. I mean, we just dealt with it. Really, it was Barry. I mean, back in the 1980s, George, put your fingers in your ears for a second. Back in 1988, 89, I had gotten a DWI, not from drinking. I don't drink. It was basically because I refused to take a breath test because they wouldn't tell me if it was a breath test or some other type of test. So they grabbed my cigarette pack out of my shirt and they found a joint in it. So I lost my license. Now Barry lives up the road from me, and we both had offices in New Jersey. For a year, he drove me, and I was a competitor of his, okay? So it would have been very easy for him to say, well, good luck, Daryl. He drove to my house every morning, picked me up, dropped me off at my office, and came back at the end of the day. He'd call, his office was 15 minutes south of me. He would call and say, we're leaving now. Do you need a ride home? And if I could leave, I would say, yeah. He'd come back to my office, again, his competitor, and drive me home every night. This went on for a year.
Wow.
And my seatmate was one of his earlier dogs, Spice, which I now have the sand cast of on my fireplace.
Wow.
And he would apologize. He would, I really upset him a couple of years ago. My friend Dirk, who was talking earlier, I wish I should have brought it up while I was here. He and I were producing this little online thing. And Barry, thought to email the playwright about how the playwright should make changes in their play. And Dirk was directing, and the protocol is that you're supposed to go through the director before you go to a playwright. And so anyway, so I said something, it was just between the playwright, Dirk, his scene partner, and myself. And I said, you've been smoking a little funny cigarette there, Barry? One or two martinis. And it just goes to show, even though he knew me very well, and he knew the tone of my voice, because it was written in an email, somehow he heard it a different way. And he was furious. I mean, he told people he wouldn't work with me, he wouldn't talk with me. And he lives 20 miles away from me up in Orange County. And I had turned to him a lot after my husband passed away. I would say, in dealing with Orange Rockland and dealing with different little things, he was my go-to person if I had a plumbing issue. And so when he kind of threw that in my face about how I'd always gone to him, he got very nasty. And I was so hurt. But finally, I thought he is more. So I called him up like 6 months later. And I said, can we talk? Are you still mad at me? And then he said, you hurt me. And I understood. And so we talked about it. And I don't know if it ever went back to what it was, because we were very, very close. But, I knew that and I learned a lesson from it. Always maybe never write what you're thinking, pick up a phone, and I'd heard stories from other people that he could get that way. But, he was a kind person, and he would come back to you. And even if he wouldn't if he didn't initiate the words of apology, he would show it in action, But anyway,
I found, I'm down Loftus, and Martin and Barry and I sort of ran pages together, and he was like a right arm, and it came as such a surprise and such a horrible news to me when he told me what the plan was and what he was going through. And I didn't even know that assisted suicide existed. But what was so amazing with him till the end was he was more concerned about what we might be going through than what he was going through. And I think about him every day, and it's a real loss. But he was a wonderful person. And thank you for doing this today.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Monica, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
I live in Chile 6 months a year, and Steve let me know that Barry was not doing well. So I did have a chance to reach out to him, and we spoke while I was in Chile, and we came back about 10 days ago. But just in time for this.
And I think that was such a blessing that Barry was open to having his diagnosis spread out there. We were able to let our members know, and people that knew Barry could reach out to him before. And I know experience when my mother was passing away, we tried to make it an episode of This Is Your Life. We brought in everybody we possibly could so that she could see them and they could see her and they could say their goodbyes. And I think that this allowed everybody that could reach out to Barry before the end. I know I was able to speak with him, and so many other people reached out to him. And he's got to know how much he meant to people and was loved. They always say, don't say these things to me while I'm alive, not at my funeral, and I think that so many people got a chance to say that what they felt and how they felt before he passed. So that was such a blessing to everybody, him and the people who cared about him. So thank you, Steve, for sending that information as well, so that we could rally the troops. And I've always said, I know some of you guys are not part of this finance organization, but it really is a big family and community, and we care about each other. It's not just getting business done, but we really care about each other, and this is just one way that we're able to show it. So thank you all for being here, and I know everybody, we're losing a lot of people, so probably just need to wrap up, but I appreciate it, and this was great. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for organizing.
Thank you, Monica.
Thanks so much for
Thank
organizing this.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
I just want to mention, I haven't known him very long. I only know him through pages. I've seen him work. I was so moved and impressed by that video where he talked about that he doesn't much time left. And I'm so sorry I didn't know him earlier. And I think he's such a wonderful example. I hope I can be as gracious when I exit, when it comes to that. And we would have been, I think we could have been wonderful friends. So that's why I'm here, though I don't really know him. So
Yeah, you have a lot of competition from a lot of women around the world who felt the same way.
yeah, I bet. Yeah, of course.
He had that charm about
I'm
him.
not surprised.
He had a charm about him that men and women, particularly women, he had a charm that women were attracted to.
Yeah.
I used to tell him, you may not believe in reincarnation. I do, because I'm Indian. Most likely you are a snake charmer in your role.
Hey guys,
We used to have a lot of fun,
Appreciate it.
together one time, and he would videotape my plays and put music in them, edit them, put subtitles on them, and talk about doing help. He was there. Just ask Barry, and he was there for you, and just lift your spirits up. Great guy. One time I made him play, wrote a scene for him as an Irish priest, and it ended with a Shakespearean sonnet, and everybody got such a kick out of his accent reading a sonnet. We used to laugh at that, Barry just was a lot of fun and very detail oriented. In one scene I had Lloyd is wearing a light blue shirt, blazer, a burgundy tie, and he had the blue tie, burgundy tie, and he just loved it. He just
Yeah,
loved doing.
thank you, thank you. Hey, George, we're planning something in my home, so I hope you join us one afternoon.
Is that the barbecue I've been inviting everybody to?
Yeah, right.
I'd love to be there, Steve. Please send me the information. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
This is
Thank
great.
you.
This is
Thank you,
tremendous.
Steve.
Thank you.
We learned a
Okay,
lot
and tell
from
your
you.
friends to look for it on YouTube.
Hi, Cliff.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.